The entire reason Dianetics and Scientology were developed was to renew the spiritual life of individuals and make it possible for them to move forward into eternity. And the bridge LRH built can do just that. So what does all of this have to do with the IRS and the victory we achieved in 1993? Frankly, everything. And to understand why, let me tell you now what was really at stake. First, all of the suppressive forces we had faced in all our previous years banded together as one. The psychiatric force that tried to prevent Dianetics had failed in 1950, but they had still moved forward into new realms of death for profit. Electric shock and prefrontal lobotomies had become too politically incorrect. So now it was drugs, still an attempt to create a brave new world where every being's emotions are controlled by chemicals. Yet with Scientology having grown larger, we weren't just killing Siberia bills, we were now exposing the death those drugs caused. The deaths didn't bother them. The lost billions did. But still, that wasn't it. It was also the Mad Dog press who had flanked every enemy attack since day one. And where did those attacks first appear? Slime magazine. Why? Well, while attacking Dianetics, consider what its founder, Henry Luce, was promoting. LSD. And that site connection was still there, with Slime magazine receiving billions in revenue to promote psych drugs. And so came their flanking assault. But that's still not why that 1993 victory was so crucial. Had the IRS working in conjunction with every party I've just described and spearheading the assault. They had issued illegal tax assessments against churches of Scientology to the tune of $1 billion, which of course we didn't have. Finally, they even went after you with weekly quotas on numbers of Scientologists to audit and $50 million in assessments. But no, all of what I've described is still not why I say this. We took every attack since the 1950s and rolled them into a single juggernaut. It didn't approach the magnitude of what was at stake in the 1990s. Because here's what was really at stake. The tech. And I mean that quite literally. Here's why. They had finally settled on a new strategy. They convinced themselves the church would collapse when LRH was no longer here, and so they'd bide their time until that occurred. They were wrong, and now, 5 years later, we were more known than ever, more visible than ever, and far bigger than ever. So they devised a new strategy, the final solution. If they had failed to stop LRH's work from being completed while he was here, then they'd destroy it when he was gone. And here's how they planned to do it, and here's also what that 90s assault and every one of its attacks was really all about. Consider the history of all great religions on earth. Whatever they could or could not achieve will never be known, because every one of them had failed to keep their source teachings. Now add to that Scientology in the here and now, where the way had definitely been found. It then follows that nothing was more important than never losing the materials that map the road out. That is why LRH had copyrighted all of his works, so they could be protected and never be lost or suffer alteration or perversion. That's also why LRH had willed the legacy to the religion, as I described tonight. More importantly, that legacy was destined for a specific Scientology church, one created to make sure these materials were never lost. That's why it was called the Church of Spiritual Technology. To receive that legacy, LRH established very specific qualifications. Primary amongst them that this church must be recognized as tax-exempt before they could receive his legacy. And in the event they failed to do so, then LRH required another church receive it. But still, that new church was also required to gain IRS recognition. LRH set those qualifications for very good reasons. First, to preserve the materials into eternity would require a great deal of resources. LRH's wealth and the continuing royalties to his books could be wiped out in taxes, preventing their preservation. Second, consider those power pushes and the underlying motivation of greed. Scientology works when it's applied purely for the reasons it was intended, And personal profit is certainly not one of them. Personal profit is also one of the prohibiting factors to achieving exempt recognition. So this was a built-in safeguard by LRH to ensure the materials would never fall under the control of one individual, not a Powers, not a Purcell, and not a parade of others who had attempted this. So with LRH's estate in probate, the Church of Spiritual Technology, CST, applied for recognition. The IRS denied it. Why? They insisted that every single Church of Scientology in the United States would also have to receive their recognition before CST could obtain theirs. In fact, they also said every foreign church would have to be reviewed as well. But just for good measure, they then issued letters, literally out of the blue, denying all pending applications from those other churches. But we hadn't lost yet. There were several Scientology churches that already had tax-exempt recognition. And so, plans were set in motion to donate LRH's estate to one of them. When the IRS found out, they acted with lightning speed, immediately issuing revocation letters and assessments to all of them as well. And what all that meant was this. They would prevent LRH's legacy from ever reaching its destination. We would not have the tech. It could wind up in anyone's hands, and even if not, would be subject to IRS seizure for taxes and thus not merely never preserved, but possibly lost altogether. And as for how we overcame all of that, all that needs to be said is, we did, because there was no other choice. At stake was the eternity of every man, woman, and child on earth. So yes, there was no billion-dollar tax bill we couldn't pay. The $50 million in assessments against you were no more. Yes, your donations to Scientology are deductible, just like every other religion. Yes, we rolled right over Interpol 1 month later, cleaning out their 3 decades of false reports and replacing them with the book What is Scientology? And yes, Can soon followed, meeting their unlamented demise. But when we achieved IRS recognition, here's what really happened. LRH's legacy did meet its destiny, and today we no longer just have the tech, but the written and spoken words of our founder are preserved on more than 135 tons of archival books, stainless steel plates, and nickel-plated records, all stored in 2,300 titanium capsules in vaults not even nuclear weapons can touch. And no matter what may happen in the future, no matter attacks against us, no matter some madman pressing a button, no matter a natural cataclysm, no matter if everything on this earth is destroyed, there will still be one thing that survives: the materials of Dianetics and Scientology. They will always be here. That can never change. And that is why I said, the war is over. So yes, that was the war, and if it had taken half a century from LRH's first breakthrough of the dynamic principle of existence in 1938 to securing the tech forever in the 1990s, we now had a responsibility to use that legacy as he intended and actually salvage a planet.
I walk through my fields, yeah. Shot.